welcome back to my YouTube channel. So this is the first video for my Practical Research 2 videos series. Now I will be uploading different lessons for Practical Research 2. I know that most of you are having difficulties catching up with the new normal, and I hope this will help. So I'm Miss Kim, and I will be your teacher Kim for this whole semester. So subscribe Teacher Kim TV sa mga hindi pa nagsasubscribe, and like and comment whatever. So let's start with the lesson. First lesson is practical research rules. So this discussion is actually based on the most essential learning competencies given by the Department of Education for this new normal setup. Now, for the first lesson, I will be discussing to you practical research 2. Now, this is actually the second part because the prerequisite of this is the practical research 1. And if you're a senior high school student who is watching this video, I know that you already know that. So I won't be discussing that anymore. Let's proceed to PR2, which is quantitative research. So make sure you have all the following: phone, laptop, installed application, willingness to learn. So actually this is my PowerPoint for my lesson. Pero dapat ganon, pag mag-online, lesson tayo. Okay, now. So practical research 2. Are you excited? Now, let's have a review. If you're just watching this right now, what is research? Sagutin mo yan. Sarili mo. What is research? Yan. So, what is research? What is qualitative research? What is quantitative research? Now, let's proceed. When we say qualitative research, it focuses on understanding the research query as a humanistic or idealistic approach which generates non-numerical data. You need to remember that non-numerical data, and it uses the idealistic or humanistic approach. That is according to Patak et al. 2013. Now, next is the quantitative research. So, ito na yun, practical research to na. So, it deals with numbers and statistics, while qualitative research deals with words and meanings. So sa mga susunod natin na lesson, it will deal with statistics and numbers. Now, what is research? I know you already have answered that in your own. So research is a process of systematic inquiry that entails collection of data, documentation of critical information, and analysis and interpretation of data or information in accordance with suitable methodologies set by specific professional fields and academic disciplines. So, mahabang definition, basta this is a systematic approach of inquiry, of the collection of data. So, you will know more about this as we go on with the discussion. Now, our objective for this video or for this lesson, for this vlog, so according to the milk, is for you to describe the characteristics, strengths, weaknesses, and different kinds of quantitative research. So, di ba, masyadong marami. I don't think we'll be able to discuss all of this. So, bear with me kasi vlog to, hindi ko patatagalin na 30 minutes. So, maybe, kung mabilis lang ako magsalita, bahala na kayo mag-catch up. Masok kayo sa subject ko, huwag kayong mag-absent. Okay, first is the wordplay. So, hindi na natin anin yung wordplay. So, credits nga pala sa nagawa ng mga nagawa nito sa Region 5 na module. Yun yung ginagamit ko. At kung napanood yun yung vlog ko ng biology, ako nagawa nun. Pero base yung PowerPoint na yun sa PowerPoint na gawa ni Ma'am Jovi. Shout out nga pala sa iyo. I love you. Yeah, thank you sa PowerPoint mo. Love you. Okay, now let's proceed. Let's proceed to the table. So we have here the characteristics of qualitative and quantitative research. This is a comparison. So when we say pag qualitative, it is subjective. So subjective siya. And then quantitative, it is objective. So bias nga, kaya nga nagiging bias ang Quali kasi that is subjective. But when we say quanti, it is objective. You have objectives to follow, that yun yung goal mo. And then qualitative, holistic, quanti is specific. And then quali, observational. So usually we use observation as a tools on gathering data, but in quanti it is more on experimental. And qualitative, deep, quanti is basic. Qualitative, single case analysis, while quantitative is generalized. Na qualitative, naturalistic approach, and then quanti have controlled. And then quali is we use descriptive. It is descriptive, but quanti is inferential, based on we infer based on the evidence or the data gathered. And then quali, process oriented, and then quanti is the outcome oriented. And the last is quali is valid, quanti is reliable. Now, let's proceed. So when we say objective, the research aims for objectivity and is separated from data. Quantitative research seeks accurate measurement. So first, ano to? Sorry. First, characteristics na objective siya. Ibig sabihin, quantitative research is accurate measurement and analysis of target concept. So prior to proposing a conclusion or solution on the problem. So data are gathered beforehand. So it is not based on mere guesses or intuitions. Hindi ka naguhula-hula lang or naisip mo lang or feeling mo lang. So this is based on data, concrete data. Now, second is structured research instruments. So the use of research instruments. So researchers use tools such as questionnaires or computer software to collect numerical data. So the overarching aim of a quantitative research study is to classify features, count them, and construct statistical models in an attempt to explain what is observed. So we need to use these instruments or research instrument to have to gather statistical data. And then one is characteristics of quanti is usually the large sample size. So the results are based on larger sample sizes that are representative of the population in order to come up with a more reliable data analysis. So pag mas madaming sample, mas marami mapagkukunan, so mas magiging reliable yung data analysis natin. Unlike kung sa dalawa lang o lima lang yung respondents mo, so less reliable siya. And then a large sample size is required depending on how the characteristics and variation of the population. So to avoid the researcher's bias in interpreting the result, and random sampling is recommended in determining the sample size. Ayan na nga. So, yan. Later on, we're going to discuss those different sampling method. Now, next characteristics is the replicated or repeated. So, when we say, given its high reliability, quantitative research study can usually be replicated or repeated. That's the beauty of quantitative research, experimental research, as there is a certain process to be follow. That's why it can be repeated. Okay, so in this manner, validity of the findings is being strengthened in order to eliminate the possibility of a spurious conclusion, which means that the more na nagkakandak ng study na uulit, the more na i-strengthen, the more na mapuprove or madidisprove. So, mas maganda yon. And then the next one is clearly defined research. Pang ilan na to? Magbilang kayo ha. Clearly defined research questions. So, prior to gathering of data, all aspects of the study are carefully designed by the researcher. So in quantitative research, the researcher know in advance what they are looking for. So questionnaires are well defined or for what objective answers are sought. So kaya nga sabi kanina, well defined yung mga questions, yung research questions. Dapat kung ano yung research questions mo, Doon ka base na isasagot mo, doon sa questions mo. So, dapat well-defined yun, hindi masyadong broad. Later on, di ba na-discuss na rin yun sa PR1? So, next is numerical data. So, data in the form of numbers. Ganun sa Kaya, quantity. So, it is measured by numbers and statistics, often organized and presented using tables, charts, graphs, figures, and other non-textual forms that consolidate large numbers of data to show trends, relationships, or differences among variables. So, yun yung mga ginagamit in presenting the data. Okay? Next is the future outcomes. Pangilan na yan. So, another characteristics are the future outcomes. Research paper can be used to generalize concept, more widely predict future results, or investigate causal relationship. So future scenarios of the study may be formulated by using complex mathematical calculation. Hindi tayo yun masyado magaling. So hindi natin yung porte, pero syempre that is part of the quantitative research. That's why kumukha tayo ng mga statistician. Magaling sila dyan. And with the aid of computers, thus predicting future outcomes. Ayan. So, na-predict natin. So that's it, guys. That's it for the characteristics. And definition and characteristics. Now let's proceed to the strength and weaknesses of quantitative research. So quantitative research is dependent on the creation of hypothesis. Hypothesis followed by accurate analysis of the statistics in order to understand and explain the research findings. So it focuses more on the quantity of things and there is statistical pattern. Ayan, so napaka-importante guys ng statistics sa quantitative. So it's a combination of stats. So yun, importante siya. So let's start with the strengths. First is quantitative data provides macro view with all the required detail and comparatively large sample. When we say macro view, ibig sabihin bigger. Kasi nga, pag micro, maliit. So, macro, malaki. So, mas malaki ang required details and larger sample siya dyan. And then, the second is large sample size enable the conclusion to be generalized. Kasi nga, large yung sample size. Another strength is that evaluation of multiple data sets can be done and at once and that too at a faster pace and accurately. So, mas mabilis ang pag-interpret ng mga data at pag-evaluate nun. And then, this method is called reappropriate when there is a need for a systematic and standardized comparison. Now, the manual implementations of ideas can be automated completely, which can save time. Yun yung kagandahan naman sa quanti. Tipid ng oras. Ayan. So, in addition to that, ayan na nga, it allows broader study, greater number of subjects, allows greater objectivity and accuracy of the result, and then applying well-established standards, which means the research can be replicated and analyzed and compared with the similar studies. So, yun yung maganda dito sa quanti. So, pwede nating i-compare sa mga previous na or sa mga tapos na or sa mga similar cases or similar studies. So, you can summarize vast sources of information and can make some comparisons across different categories over time. And then personal bias can be avoided. This is very important. One of the strength of the quanti is that ma-avoid natin yung bias. Hindi siya opinionated, hindi siya subjective. It is objective and it has talagang goal na masagot and specific lang. And then, now, if there is a strength, of course, quantitative research also have weaknesses and madami din yon. So, isa-isay natin. And, hi, shout out nga pala sa philodendron ko muna. Pahinga tayo. Philodendron and syngonium. Okay, now, let's proceed to the weaknesses. Now, quantitative method reveals what and to what extent, but often fails to answer more on why and how. Yon. Kasi hindi siya masyadong explanatory. na super explanatory compared sa qualitative research. Kaya nga may tinatawag tayong triangulation approach. Kung naalala nyo sa PR1, may triangulation approach, combination of the two approaches. Okay, let's proceed. So another weakness is the type of research requires the model performance to be monitored on constant basis in order to ensure its compliance with the original hypothesis. Yan. Lagi ko compare. Okay. The impression of homogeneity in a sample may turn out to be fake in this method. So, possible yun. One of the weakness yun. Also, this method involves limited number of quant supply and also involves complex discipline which are hard to master. So, yun guys. Yun yung mahirap dito guys. Hindi siya madali. So, hindi siya madaling ma-master, kailangan talagang pag-aralan. And then, quantitative data is more efficient and able to test hypotheses but may miss contextual detail. That's what we're talking about. Na weakness niya talaga if it comes to detail. And then use as a static and rigid approach, and so employs an inflexible process of discovery. And then the development and of a standard question by researcher can lead to a structural bias. That's it. Doon magkakabias kapag ganun ang pagkakonstruct and false representation where the data actually reflects the view of the researcher instead of the particular subject. Di ba nga kasi usually dito, meron choices, may pamimilian, and then gagawa ng tanong ay yung nagagawa ng research, and then hindi siya more an explanatory. So, kung ano yung sagot lang yung pinamilian mo, yun lang din yung makukuha mo. That's one. Okay, next. Ang bilis ko, di ba? Okay, let's proceed to the last. There are different types of quantitative research. Dito na tayo sa mga types. So, ayan, kung sila yung mga types, okay. The first type is the philodendron. The joke lang. So, the first type is descriptive. There is a descriptive quantitative research. Huwag na kayong magtaka. Meron talaga nan, guys. And then, we have the next is the correlational. And then, the third one is the quasi. I'm not sure. Check nyo nga, quasi-quasi. Basta, quasi-experimental or the causal comparative. Okay, and then the experimental research. Experimental research. So, the apat. So, there are 4 different types. Let's start with the descriptive. From the word itself, describe. So, para saan ito? It seeks to describe the current status of the unidentified variable. So these research projects are designed to provide systematic information about a phenomena. So usually descriptive research is ginagamit in order to explain a certain phenomena. So pwede ba natin sabihin na phenomenology yun? I don't know. Okay, so the researcher does not usually begin with a hypothesis, but likely to develop one after collecting the data. Yan. So the analysis and synthesis of the data provide a test of the hypothesis, and systematic collection and information requires careful selection of the units studied and careful measurement of each variable. So that is based on www.wssu.edu. Yan. So there are 3 ways a researcher can go about doing a descriptive research project, and they are: first is we have the observational, so defined as a method of viewing and recording the participants. The next one is case study. Usually case study is in the field of psych or in med. So for example, may certain case na special na case ng sakit, ganyan whatsoever. So, defined as an in-depth. Nagkakaroon kasi ng in-depth study of an individual or group of individuals. So, case study yon. May kaso na pag-aaralan. And then, literally na kaso, ha? Okay, so, surveys. And then, the third one is the common na ginagamit natin sa high school na madali na nagagawa, though hindi naman madali, pero nagagawa, is the survey. So, defined as a brief interview or discussion with an individual about a specific topic. So, if we use survey but in a quantitative research, that is descriptive. That's okay? Lawan again, ha? Okay, next is example. So, example now is a description of a tobacco use habits of teenagers. So, quantitative yun. Description of the kind of physical activities that typically occur in nursing homes and are frequently exposed. So, yun, descriptive yun. Now, the second one. The second one is the correlational research. So it attempts to determine extent of relationship between two or more variables using statistical data. This type of design, a relationship between and among a number of facts are sought and interpreted. Yan ha. Sought and interpreted. Yan. This type will recognize trends and patterns in the data but does not go as far as its analysis to prove causes of these observed patterns. Now, correlational, kaya correlation, para itong dalawa dyan sa likod ko, correlational. There is a cause and an effect is not the basis of this type of observational research. The data and the relationship and the distribution. Tandaan na, data, 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 relationship, distributions of variables are studied only. So variables are not manipulated. They are not, they are only identified. And they are studied as they occur in the natural setting. Hindi siya inilagay doon, inobserve niya lang. So, examples of correlational research is the covariance of the smoking to lung disease. O, ilagay mo ba doon yung lung disease? Ilagay mo ba yung smoking? Meron na yan, existing yan. Pag-aaralan mo lang sila. Kung meron ba silang correlation. And the second one, relationship between diet and anxiety. O, hindi mo naman nilagay anxiety, hindi mo naman nilagay yung diet. So, pag-aaralan mo lang kung may correlation ba yung dalawa. Okay, so next is and the quasi or the quasi-experimental research. So, attempts to establish ito yung may cause and effect among the variables. So, tandaan nyo, dito usually na pumapasok yung may mga variables. So, these types of design are similar to true experiments, but there are some key differences. Tandaan yan, kaya nga quasi, hindi experimental. So, ano kayang pinakaiba noon? Assignment nyo yan, alamin nyo yan, mamaya pakinggan ako. Okay, so an independent variable is identified but not manipulated by the experimenter. So, and the effects of the independent variable and the dependent variable are measured. So, the researcher does not randomly assign groups and must use that ones that are naturally formed or pre-existing groups. Okay? Now, identified control groups exposed to the treatment variable are studied and compared to groups who are not. Ayan na, naririnig nyo na ang mga salita. Variable compared to the control groups, treatment, control group, experimental group, variable, ano-ano ba yung mga yan. So when analysis and conclusion are made determining the cause must be done carefully as the other variables about known and unknown causes will affect the outcome. So later on, sa topic natin dito sa practical research 2, may isa-isa natin yan. Something variable, yan mga yan. Treatment, ano ba yung mga yan. So example, effect of online class today students' performance. Oh, hindi yun. Hindi mo inano yung setup na yun, hindi mo siya ginawa, hindi ikaw yung nag-set up ng online class. So, pero experimental siya. So, effect of online class to the student performance. So, the effect of feeding program on the student's attendance. Yan. Kapag nagpa-feeding program ba, mas lagi ba papasok o hindi ba papasok? May naapektuhan ba yung attendance nila? Tumataas ba kapag may pa-feeding program? So, yan. Mabilis ba magsalita? Yan. Okay, so, meron tayo dito tinatawag na controlled, then manipulated, or the experimental. Ayan, ha? So, malalaman nyo yan as we go on with our practical. Sumunod pa kayo ng mga susunod kong vlog. Okay, next. Experimental research is commonly used in sciences such as sociology. Ito na, pang-apat na tayo guys. Pang-apat na. Sociology, which is psychology, physics, chemistry, biology, medicine, etc. So, it is a collection of research design which use manipulation. Ito na yun. Kanina kasi, hindi mo talaga siya manipulate. Hindi mo talaga siya super ma-control. But experimental, you can manipulate and you can control to understand the causal processes. Experimental research are often called true experimentation or true experimental research design. So use the scientific method to establish the cause and the effect. Yan. For example, pag diniligan ko ba ito, mamamatay ba ito? Or pag sakto lang ang dilig, or pag konti lang yung dilig, or pag nasobra ng dilig. So, yun. Ibig sabihin, kaya mong i-set up. Ano? Kaya mong i-control yung environment. And then, so, the true experiment is often taught as a laboratory study. That's why it is conducted in the laboratory because you controlled everything, the environment, the setup, etc. So, but this is not always the case. A laboratory setting has nothing to do with it. A true experiment is a study where an effort is made to identify and impose control over all the variables except one. So, an independent variable is manipulated in order to determine the effects on the dependent variables. So, ibig sabihin, hindi mo lahat i-manipulate. Ang i-manipulate mo lang ay yung independent o dependent variables. So, yan. Independent variables is manipulated at ang at in order to determine the effects sa dependent variables. So, magkakaroon ng epekto dun sa dependent variables. So, malinaw yan ha. So, subjects are randomly assigned to experimental treatments rather than identify the naturally occurring groups. Examples of experimental effect of a new treatment plan to breast cancer. So, pwede yun. And the effect of systematic preparation and support system on the children who are scheduled for surgery on the amount of physiological upset and cooperate. Psychological. Antok na ako guys. So, matutulog na ako pagkatas nito. Okay. So, meron lang yung mga attach ko na lang to doon sa Google Classroom nyo. Ayan. Yun lang naman yun guys. So, apat lang yun. Ulitin natin, descriptive. Ano pa? Okay, so dapat natatandaan nyo yan. Descriptive, correlational, experimental. Those are the different types of research. Marami pa yan, marami pa sa ibaba niyan, pero yun yung importante. So, I hope that you understand the importance of research. So, assignment na ninyo yun. What is the importance of research to you as a student and importance of research in the different fields? Okay, so since marami kayong iba sa inyo, ABM may manunod na step. So, bahala na kung sino manunod ng vlog ko. Basta yon ang assignment ninyo. That's all, guys. Ayan na, 27 minutes na ako nagbablog. So, tatapusin ko na to. Baka umabot pa ng 30 minutes, wala na manood. Yun lang. That's it for today, guys. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe to my YouTube channel. And yun, don't forget to hit the notification bell para lagi kayo updated sa kada post ko ng video. Yun lang. Bye, guys. Bye. Bye.